Evening, Fraser Watson.
Good evening, Tom. How are you?
They're very well, thank you. I know that you've been around with the sport as well, but I can't leave him holding on too much longer because you'll fall asleep, bless him. Good evening, Ben Stone.
Yeah, good evening, Tom. Hi, Gordon. Hi, Fraser. How are we all doing? All right?
Good, Ben. I would say doing better than you are after running 22 miles yesterday, but after wicket-keeping, I'm not sure that's true. I just have to walk down these steps sideways.
Yeah, judging by the statement, Ben, you're in a lot better kettle than him, mate. I can tell you that.
Yeah, you should have seen me walking up the escalator yesterday. This morning at Paddington Station. That was not pretty. Luckily, there were quite a few fellow marathon runners who were in the same state, so I didn't feel quite as bad. But yeah, I feel your pain, Fraser. My quads are feeling it tonight. I can tell you that.
So for those that aren't watching us on social media at the moment, Ben Stone is here. I'm leading the conversation today. It's like the Master and the Apprentice. But Ben, you've got something around your neck there. What did you get up to yesterday? A bit of a jog?
Yep. There we go. Yeah, that's my medal for doing the London Marathon yesterday. So I did it in 3 hours 34:31. Guys, it was incredible. It was everything I wanted it to be, and we've spoken about some of my reasons for doing it. Doing it for the RSPCA. I went there yesterday and for the weekend, determined to savor it, determined to remember my mate Marty, who should have been there on that start line yesterday. And London lived up to everything I wanted it to be. The streets were just lined from mile 1 to mile 26.2. I don't think I'd probably understood the noise and the volume of the crowd support that you get in London. People have told me about it, that the support is amazing. Until you're actually on the course, you just don't really appreciate it. And I think I said to someone after about a mile and a half that this is just unbelievable, and that was just down to the first roundabout when there were people cheering from their flats and just lining the streets, and it just got louder from there, and it grew, and there wasn't really a quiet spot in the entire course. That the support was absolutely incredible.
Ben, what's always struck me about watching it, actually, the marathon, is obviously you got 50,000 runners, I think there was, on approximately in the streets of London yesterday. And obviously you look at the starts in particular and just how crammed it is. How did you find that in terms of your own race? Was it restrictive? Is it as restrictive as it looks? Obviously, the space is so crammed and you must spend a lot of time weaving in and out. Or is it not so bad? Does it even itself out as the course goes?
Yeah, actually, once you're on the course, that wasn't too bad. The water stations were like something I've never really experienced before in terms of how crowded they got. And they were brilliantly staffed, and there were water stations almost every mile. I think that the trickiest part really was the journey over. So the Tower Bridge to Blackheath section, which was where I was starting from, was really busy, and we allowed plenty of time, but the trains were absolutely heaving with people. So we missed a couple. They were then held as we were going over, just because of the sheer volume of numbers. So the build-up prep, if you allowed it to be, could have been quite stressful. Actually, I was just determined, there's nothing we can do about this. Then when you get to the start part, actually that was quite slick. You gave your bags in on the lorry, and they take those to the end. And then you use the toilet and you're pretty much ready to go. I would always say to people, and I did this for the first time, take a throwaway top that you can just get rid of as you get to the start, because it was raining quite heavily yesterday. So that stopped us getting quite wet. So I chucked that away. But once actually we were in our wave and we were away, that didn't feel too crowded. You get to a point, I think it's quite early on, may even be just before 5K, where all the 3 start points merge. So it does noticeably feel a bit busier then. But I think I was able to hold my pace most of the way around, and the paces were excellent as well. There were 130 paces yesterday at different times, taking people around. So they did a really good job. So yeah, it did feel busy, and I think it probably makes it difficult to be a super quick course, London. But that kind of added to it a bit as well, that there were so many of you doing this en masse.
Sure.
I mean, it was only a few weeks ago you had COVID, Ben, so that disrupted your running plans. But how did it actually feel when you were running? Were you comfortable, or did you hit any sort of periods over certain miles that you were struggling?
Yeah, I think yesterday was probably the best. It was my third marathon and my slowest,
Yeah.
actually. But actually, funnily enough, it was probably the best I've ever paced a marathon. So my splits were quite close together. And I think my slowest mile yesterday was the quickest, slowest mile I've ever had in a marathon. And so I was a bit better and more in control that way. I think there were a few moments where it got wet, so there were lots of puddles on the road. So around
Yeah.
mile 9 was a bit tricky because it was raining quite heavily around Canada Water. My family there, led by my wife Becky, who was amazing, Marty's wife Rachel, Marty's mum Trish, were there at that point. My brother as
Oh,
well.
lovely.
So seeing them at mile 9 was just a moment where you're like, I can't believe they're there cheering me on, and it was so good to see them at that point. There are a few funny bits I find when you're doing a marathon, and the halfway point is a bit strange. And Fraser, you'll know what I mean. Having done half marathons, you've done 13.1, and then you're halfway, and in your mind you're thinking, I've got to do another one now, and the second half marathon. So mentally, that plays a bit with
Mate,
you.
when I do 10K, I think after 5K, let alone 13 out of 26 miles.
And you can't help but count it down then in race distances all the way. So, you do your first half, then you have another half, then it's 10K, then it's 5 miles, and then you're like, it's just a park run, and this is going to be done. So I kind of take it through those stages. And interestingly, yesterday, Gordon, the wall, which I've always had, the walls always come about 22 miles for me. Yesterday, the wall didn't come. I kept even. I don't know if there was someone pulling me round yesterday. I don't know if it was the crowd cheering us on that helped, but I didn't hit the wall yesterday, and I really enjoyed the last 2 miles. The last 2 miles was
it down to the wet conditions, do you think, that kept you cool and not too hot, and you kept rehydrated, and things were going quite well in that respect?
I think on
a hot day it's difficult, isn't it? Really, on a hot day you were probably better to have those sort of conditions.
Yeah, the drizzle was fine. When it got a bit heavy, it was a bit harder and hard for the people watching, but they were fantastic. But I made an effort to try and hydrate every station if I could, which I did. And just that last 2 miles where you're coming down the embankment, so you're running down the embankment with the Thames on your left, and Parliament is in front of you, and you can just feel it getting closer, and that is just an unbelievable feeling. You turn right then into Westminster. And that part of the course, I don't think the spectators could move. Westminster Tube Station was overflowing. There were people just lining the streets. And you go from Parliament, and Buckingham Palace is coming. You run with the Green Park on your right-hand side. I saw Becky and all my family again at 25.7. And then you've got that bit where you just turn right, Birdcage Walk, and you've got Buckingham Palace behind you, and that was everything I wanted it to be. That it was just so special running that part, and to be able to do that with no traffic around, loads of people cheering, was absolutely sensational. It was.
Ben, you don't mind me bringing this up now. You touched it. It was a very poignant reason that you were running yesterday, of course. And we all experienced it when you have adversity in your lives, and sometimes that can derail you in terms of sport, couldn't it, and hobbies and things like that. But I also find that sometimes the emotion can help. It can help channel you into sport, not because the magnitude of what happened is in any way on the same significance as amateur sport, of course, but because it almost drives you in some sense. I found that's helped me at times before. Did you find that this weekend in rather than be a distraction, it was actually a motivation?
100%. This weekend, it was the motivation. I think where it's been harder have been those moments. I talked to Tom about this last week, where the training runs were difficult. I never regretted them, and I had to do them because you have to respect the marathon distance. I think you can't just wing it. You have to put the training in. Those runs were really hard. My motivation was low, certainly in February time. But this weekend, it felt quite a joyous occasion, really. And I, as you say there, Fraser, I was so determined that this weekend, my achievement was Marty's achievement yesterday. He should have been there. Those miles were for him, and it was a bucket list thing for both of us. And it still was. It still was. The fact that I was able to do it, and his family were there to see it, and my family were there to see it, it was still our moment. And that did drive me. That 100% drove me. And where I say I didn't hit the wall, I think there was a reason for that yesterday. I was meant to go round, and I was meant to do it in that time that I did it yesterday. And it was even in the most tragic of circumstances. None of us wanted it to be like it was yesterday. It was the best marathon it could possibly have been in those circumstances.
I've always thought the London Marathon, which stands out for me, is it's one of these events which has stood the test of time. We've spoken about this on the show, haven't we? Like 5Ks, 10Ks, half marathons. They're not so unique anymore in terms of so much else. You've got stuff like Ironman, you've got extreme events, but the London Marathon, in terms of the appeal, the entry list, the crowds that you mentioned, still stays as strong as ever. Having competed in it now, do you understand why that is?
I absolutely do, Fraser. Yeah, and London just came alive again yesterday, and the crowd cheering, the music. There were choirs. There were bits where people were lining both sides of the street coming out, and this is when it was raining as well. So I think the people and the supporters make that race. The volunteers, it's a big event, isn't it? 48,000 runners there caring for and making sure they all get around safely. And there was medics everywhere. There were toilet facilities everywhere. It was just so well done. And I think it's how the supporters embrace it, and it's how the public embrace it as well. To go there, you think about how much money was raised for charity yesterday. So many different sides to the race as well. You've got the elites kicking it off. Mo Farah running his final race, and the women's elite. The finish to that was sensational, and the athlete who won that, her story was amazing. How she ran the race yesterday. So many stories come out of London, and I think it's one that will always stand the test of time. And I think actually the course is the traditional course as well, isn't it? It's that they barely changed the route since the first marathon, and it's such an iconic course. The one that I will mention, actually, which I haven't mentioned yet, was Cutty Sark. So when we ran through Cutty Sark, the noise there, it felt like the road was shaking. The noise was so loud, and people banging, and you've got this amazing backdrop. I think it makes the amateur runner feel like a professional because all those people are out cheering you on, and having your name on your vest, as you know, Fraser, you just get people shouting your name everywhere. And I had that for 3.5 hours yesterday. It made me feel like I knew half the crowd.
Waving at everybody. Ben, when we talked on the other morning on the breakfast show, you were saying that you wanted to be sure to absorb it all. It wasn't a race that you were going for a time. It wasn't a race that you wanted to really push yourself. You wanted to take it all in. It sounds like you did that, but were you able to sustain that for the whole duration?
Yeah, I did, and there were bits I really wanted to take in. I've mentioned the finish going towards Parliament and the start as well. There were that first mile where we realised what we were all doing. We were running the London Marathon was brilliant. That was such a good feeling. I wouldn't change a single thing about how that race went yesterday. I wouldn't change a single thing. I think I soaked it all in, and it was in terms of running, that's the best race I've ever run. That's the best race I've ever run, and I wouldn't change a single thing about it.
These are great scenes actually on Facebook and social media. Obviously, other Pembrokeshire people, Nico Sitaro, your son was only playing with a couple of weeks ago. Sean Jenkins as well from Kerry, doing it, and there has been some amazing photos and images going around. To be fair, it does look like a race which creates real memories for those involved.
Yeah, I think it, and it's because of that history and the stories that have come out of the London Marathon over the years. I think that for people to do it, it's a bucket list thing, isn't it? And people put so much work into it, don't they? The training is hard, and it's an April race, so you have to do some of those long runs in the winter. It's not easy going out in January, February, March, hitting those long miles and raising so much money for charity as well. So I think anyone who did it yesterday, absolutely unbelievable. So well done to all the Pembrokeshire people that did it. It was a pleasure to be on that course with you. It was special. Fraser, the ballot's open as well for 2024. I did always say it would only be a one-time only thing. I have balloted.
I think you're going to go again.
I was just about to ask. Have you put your name forward again?
I was going to say, I can see by you don't even have to ask you. But you're itching to go again. It would go if it was going tomorrow. I think you go.
I have balloted again. Yeah, I have, and
yeah.
If I get a ballot placed, I'll do it. I probably wouldn't do it for charity again next year. But if I got a ballot placed, I would do it. And I do see why. I do see why people get the bug for the London Marathon. I understand that now, because it is so good. It's so special. So, but yeah,
I think you could go a step further and try the Ironman in Tenby. How about that?
If I was a better swimmer, Gordon, I would. But... Absolutely no chance.
Well, I think it's amazing. I think you've inspired a few people that may have thought about it being on their bucket list. You've only talked of praise, and it was raining. It's been on my bucket list for a while. So now that the ballot's open, now talking to you, I'm going to have to put my name in there and let the fates decide.
We all will, shall we?
Yeah, go on. Go on. And you've already raised money for the RSPCA. Have you got is it closed yet? Is it open? What was the final tally that you've got so far?
The page will stay open for a bit longer. And I just want to say to everyone that supported me, thank you so much. I saw some of the RSPCA team afterwards. They had a reception area for people who'd run for them, and they were just so grateful. They're a smaller charity at the London Marathon. So Macmillan, one of my friend Chris ran for Macmillan and did brilliantly yesterday. They had 800 runners. The RSPCA only had 25. Wow. So we were a small team, and I managed to raise £3,481 on the back of yesterday. Has absolutely blown me away, the support I've had. Justgiving.com/Ben Stone London 2023 is the page. It is still open, but just thank you for everyone that's supported me. It's not been an easy few months to build up for that, and I am absolutely so grateful to everyone that supported me. It means a lot to me. Thank you.
Well, it's
excellent effort, man.
Yeah, it is fantastic. I'm looking forward to hearing stories about how you get down the stairs in a moment. Your next run when you get out there, try not to fall over. Ben, congratulations.
Thank you, Tom. I do believe in recovery runs. So, Fraser, maybe you might have to do one as well tomorrow. I will try and do a hobble.
And in fact, we'll be hearing more about Fraser's exploits in just a moment, actually, because we've got George Evans joining us, haven't we, Fraser? You spent quite a while looking at him.
I had a good view, from wicket keepers. He banged 167 not out.
Right, Ben, we're going to leave you get some rest and a well-earned Horlicks and a good night's sleep. And looking forward to catching up with you in the weekend as you're back in the hot seat for the Pure Sports Show.
I'll look forward to that. Thanks, guys. Thank you for the support. It's been brilliant.
No worries, Ben. Well done.
Yeah, well done, Ben. Well done. Ben Stone, who's Just Giving link is still open for the RSPCA, and you've written a great piece on Facebook, kind of recapping what you went through as well. So we'll try. I'll find that link and I'll share it on there. But for those that are listening now, what's the name of that page?
Just Ben Stone, London Marathon Challenge 2023. You'll find that.
There you go. He gives a bit of a recap as some of the things we mentioned here, so you can have a look there and find that Just Giving link. We're going to take a moment, have a bit of Lewis Capaldi, and we're going to come back with Nayland Seconds, who made the most of the first day of the cricketing season against Lanrean. You're listening to the Pure Sports Show with Eaton-Evans and Morris Solicitors.
Eaton-Evans and Morris Solicitors